Hi everyone, it's Kim. Thanks for joining me. Tim has released his third collection of the year. It is another vault series, which we knew it would be. This time it is all about Halloween and one die set for fall. And that's the one we're going to start with, and then we'll jump into the Halloween dies. I want to first just show you real quickly what's in the die set and then where those dies originally came from, the other dies that he pulled from. Because as before, the new dies are resized from what the original die set was. So as I've done before, the colored die cuts are from the new die sets and the black die cuts are from the original die sets. So for this first one, this is called Vault Foliage Wreath. And you can see the original wreath here, or excuse me, the new wreath here is larger than the original wreath. The original wreath set is from the Funky Wreath. We saw this on an earlier vault set of his, so we'll talk about that. We're going to look at that in just a second for a particular reason. And then for the flowers and the leaves, those all came from one die set. The original one is called Funky Foliage. So everything here came from this die set, and you can see the size comparison. Almost everything is smaller. I guess everything as I look through here is smaller than the original die set. And then this bow, which is larger than the original, that comes from the Funky Festive. So there's a lot of dies in this set, and like the flowers layer up and some of the leaves layer up as well. So there's a lot of pieces going on in this. Now I want to just show you real quickly the first series he had. I believe this is the first collection he had in the year, and there again we have the wreath. So in this one we had the leaves, and in the current one we have more of like the sticks for the wreath. And he has a third wreath coming out for his last collection of the year. And if you want to see what that looks like, get online and look at his YouTube for this third vault collection, because he does give us a sneak peek. And he's also sharing that with us because he said, he doesn't know how long, he never knows how long this collection's going to last. So if you want all three wreaths, you need to buy the first one, buy the second one now, and then you can get the third one when it comes out later on here in a couple months. So this was the first collection. It would work, and you can mix and match and combine with the current collection as well. But if you're into the wreaths, you're into all the flowers, you may want to make sure you get this one. And the first one was called Vault Funky Floral Wreath. And the latest one is called Vault Foliage Wreath. So little difference in a few different parts in all of those collections. So we're just going to leave the new ones out here. So this is one of his new Halloween vault collections. This is called Vault Wicked. And you can see this one has a lot of pieces in it as well. The big standout here is this witch. And she is larger than the original witch. And this came out last year, so it's interesting that this came back already. So the original die is Toil and Trouble. So this is the die that is on the new set, and it's bigger, and it's also facing the opposite directions. And what's great is you can really use all of these old die sets with this new vault collection. The other ones here, we've got the cat from this die set and the mouse from this die set as well, and the bats. And then for some of the other pieces, our crow and the bottles come from Regions Beyond. So you can see the size difference. The bottles are a lot smaller than the original bottles. The cat slightly larger, and the crow is slightly smaller, and the mouse slightly larger. And then the pumpkin is the base of this one right here. And even though this is a colorized die, this is called Pumpkin Duo. It's just a one-layer die, and then there is another piece for the stem. So that's where this one comes from. And then finally, We have got, let's see, I'm trying to remember here now where that moon came from. Here's the moon. And this is from a Movers and Shapers die. So totally different die. And the new one is smaller. This was called Mini Owl and Crescent Moon. And I think we got everything. The stars are new. He just added those in just because, you know, everything needs a star. But I think we've covered everything and where these dice came from. Oh, one more, the hat. We forgot the hat. So the hat comes from Frightful Things, and the new hat is just ever so slightly smaller than the original hat. So that covers Vault Wicked. And then we have another one with a lot of words in this one. And this is called Vault Gothic Portraits. So here is the new Vault die. And you can see the words. The new words are definitely a little smaller than the original words. The original words came from Vintage Spirits. And I love the font that they use on this. And then we've got our bats. And the bats are two of the bats from this dice set. So this is Bat Crazy. So he just picked two of the bats out and used them on this dice set, and they're the exact same size. So he didn't change the sizes from this original die. And you can see that there. Let's see, the crow. This is the new crow. This is the old crow. They are facing opposite directions. So the old one came from Feather and Ravens. And see, there was also another die set that had this in here. And here's the new one. Here's from the Ravens and Crows. And this one is from the Vault Series Halloween 2021. So he has gone back and pulled out this crow from a previous Vault Series, his first Vault Series. And then for our portraits, those are another Mover and Shapers die. And you can see how those are compared to what the current dies are like. Mini silhouettes. And the new ones are a little smaller. And the one brand new die is this spider. A creepy spider. He said in his YouTube video that he never had a creepy crawly spider, and that's what he wanted. Most of his spiders are like a top-down look with the legs going out. So I do love that he's got a spooky spider. And then this one is called Vault Fright Night. So here we're taking a look at that. And for this one, we've got the ghosts. So here are the new ghosts in this set. And then he has ghosts from two other sets. So the old set is called Frightful Things. So there are those two ghosts. There are those big ghosts. And then these other ghosts that are they're smaller than this, but larger than his last ones, are from Vault Fright Night. So this was another Vault series that he did. I don't know if it was last year or I think it was 2 years ago. So sometimes I know it's hard to keep up with all these different dies. And then the spider web. Let's see. Let's get this is the new one out. Try to keep it straight here. So the new web is a little smaller than the old web. Here is the old web. And this is called spider web. And then he does point out that you can, cut. You don't have to use the whole web. There's kind of a X marks the spot here, or a plus sign. So you could just easily take a quarter of that web if you wanted it for like the corner of your cards. Then let's look at the clouds. Here's the original clouds here, and here's the new clouds and moon. The original clouds and moon are from the Ghost Town number 2. They're a little larger, and there's 3 clouds in that, where his new dice set has just 2 of the clouds, and they're just a little bit smaller. But again, those are perfect to coordinate. And then let's look at our graveyard scene here. So we're going to go back and take a look at that. Here's the new one. This is from one of his previous vault series. And of course, now I don't know where I buried that die. Oh, here it is. Okay, that's from Ghost Town too. So he explained in his video that he took this die, which was pretty simple, and then he took one of his older dies. This is called Graveyard on the Edge, if you remember these, like a border die. And this one was a lot longer than I anticipated, because when I finally dug it out, I was like, oops, I didn't quite leave room on here. But here's the two old ones, and here's the new one. So he combined some of the elements from this and added it to this one to come up with the new one. So one thing I do like is he tells all about his process and where he pulls things out and why he did what he did. This one also has branches. I do not have the original die set with the branches, so these are a little smaller than the originals, but amazingly, I don't have that one. And then finally, the last one, and I have to tell you, I was really ecstatic to see this one. Let me show you the die set, because this just doesn't do it justice here. This is called Vault Coffin, and it has this 3D coffin, and I will show you what that looks like. I just took the top of it here and put it down so it was flat. I do not, amazingly enough, have this original die. It was a Biggs die, and that is one that I am still looking for at every craft sale I go to, but I've yet to find that. So I was so happy he brought this one back, and it is a little smaller model than the original one. And then here are some of the other pieces in the die set, and for the hat, this, oh, I can't remember now where this guy comes from, but for the hat, for the skeleton, it comes from this guy, and there is a Biggs die. So this one is smaller. The Biggs die, which I didn't dig out, the hat is larger. And then we've got the bones and the skeleton come from another die. We'll take a look at that here if I can find it real quick in the pile. And then here's the original bat. It's from a Movers and Shapers again. This was called Mini Bat and Skull Set. The cross I don't have, and the font I don't have. That was one of those huge, long Biggs dies. That was like a $65 die. So I do not have that one. And I don't have this die in front of me because I know I'm using that for something. So that there's a lot of skulls, but this, just know that the new one, the skull and bones, is just a little smaller than the original. And then here is the coffin box, so you get a better idea of the size of this. So it's small, perfect to stuff some candy in there, whatever. But I'm glad we at least have a small one if you don't have the big one. And ironically, Tim could not find his big one. I thought that was, a little sad that he couldn't even find his own die. So here are the new dies, and we're going to take a look at some cards that I made with these. And they mix and match great. So let's look at some cards and how we can mix and match. And I did on a couple of them use a few other things. So I'm going to start with this one just because you know how much I love the skeleton hand. I couldn't help but combine that with that wonderful spooky spider and the word wicked. And then I have a bone from my bone stash that I acquired through Dollar Tree. So these bones are available again this year. My hand here in its original position, I didn't do any alterations to that, is from Spellbinder's Boo Cocktails. So we looked at that last time. That is just a wonderful skull hand, and I just had fun putting this together. I just kind of cut out some pieces. The bone, if you do get some of these, they're just more of a white creamy color, and I used a Posca paint pen and just kind of put some of the paint from the pen on it and just kind of rubbed it with my finger to to rub it in and spread it out a little bit. But these two new dies are from the Vault Gothic Portraits die set. And then let's take a look at fall. We don't have to make everything scary. So this is using the new Vault Foliage Wreath. And I basically used all of the pieces. I tried to make it fallish, but more bright colors. And then here is that font from the Vault Coffin die set. So again, it doesn't have to be scary. We can use that font year round. And I really do like the looks of that. Then for the background here, I did use a new embossing folder. And that's from Sizzix. This one is called Cosmopolitan French Twist. So it has, it's a 3D folder, and you can see that twist on it, but you can use this in any direction that you want on your card. You're not limited to just using it one way. And it's just a nice, subtle amount of texture to the back of my card base. And I'm not sure how much you can see that, just kind of depending on which way the light catches it. So that is my fall card, a nod to fall, which hopefully will be here sooner rather than later. But of course, if we can make a nice non-spooky fall card, we can also use the wreath to make something a little spookier. So this time I layered up the wreath from the new Vault die. Here's those branches from Vault Fright Night. And then I used the pumpkins, or the pumpkin from Vault Wicked with the hat and the moon. And let's see here. I was just having so much fun putting all the pieces together. Here's the clouds. And then the bats are, these are the two smaller bats. And let's dig around, and here's the larger bat from Vault Gothic Portraits. I don't have all these memorized. I've just kept going back and forth, pulling out everything from all these dies. And then Sending Spooky Hugs is from the Better Press. And I'll put that on the product list. And just a sentiment that I had ready to go. So we can still make it spooky using basically that wreath die for two different looks, just depending on what your mood is and what the occasion is. And then the next one, I did the same thing where I combined a bunch of different dies. But I want to show you this card because this card structure came from Kath Stewart, who is a longtime maker for Tim. And when I take it out of the card, it's flat, but then I can pop it open and it becomes like a 3D card, and it moves a little. And I'm going to show you how to do this, make this card base, because it's super simple. But this is a 110-pound cardstock, and we're going to use 80-pound. And I'm going to show you this from up above. When I move this, see how this front part curves? And if you're sending this to somebody, they're not going to really care. And I even reinforced the top edge there with a little strip of paper. I don't know if you can see that, but I didn't like that it did that. And I think because the cardstock is so heavy, I had better success with it not curving like that using a little lighter cardstock. But nonetheless, I like that those pieces, I'm going to kind of hold it like this. Those pieces move, so you can see the witch and the cat moving in and out of the scene. And when I set this up, and I'm going to do it like this, you can see how the witch and the cat are off the back of that background. They stand out. So this is super easy. Let me show you how this is made. I guess first let's show you the pieces that we used. So we've got our spider web, our ghosts, our graveyard scene, all from Fright Night, and then our witch and our cat, the broom and the mouse, all come from Wicked. So my storyline on this one is the witch is cleaning out her house. She found a mouse and she's taking him outside. So let me show you how easy it is to make this card base, and then you can decorate it however you want. It doesn't have to be scary. I will also put the link to Kath's blog. She shows how to make it as well, and you can see what she did on her card base. So you can make this any size. I cut out a piece of paper for an A2 size card. I need 2 pieces of paper the same size, and I'm going to make 2 score lines a half an inch in from both edges. So there's 1/2, and then I'm going to go over another half, and then I'm going to flip this around because it's just easier for me to do it off the left hand side than the right hand, or the right side than the left. Okay, so we're going to make our 2 score lines. You're going to do this to 2 pieces of paper. You're going to do the exact same thing to another piece of paper. And then we are going to fold on those score lines. So just take this, and we need it to be flexible. So go back and forth on all of those lines. And then we need to cut an opening in this. And you can do whatever you want. So look through your nested dies or whatever die you have that can cut your opening. And this one you can see this pretty much cut out that whole centerpiece. You know, you don't want to go into your tab lines here or your creases, but in this section of it, you can cut out wherever you want. So I've got 2 pieces ready to go. I've got my die, and I'm going to put this on here and die cut it out. Now, because this is a 5.5 by 4 1/4, but when I was looking through these, I wanted something that's going to give me kind of a ruffly edge, and I had to kind of lay it not straight on, kind of at an angle off center here, you know, turned it a little bit. So I'm going to run this through, and then I have a piece that looks like this. So this is my 2 pieces. Now, when I do these, I do lay them out in advance. I don't just think, oh, okay, let me just throw it together. I do lay everything out in advance. And let me get the right side here. So I've got my edges folded, got this. I have my pieces cut and ready to go so that we can put this together rather quickly because it is super, super simple. There's a few things I want to do while it's still flat. And I do want to kind of reinforce this edge so when we push it in, this isn't bending so much. So what I have are 2 skinny little strips that I cut. And if I do this now, it's just easier. I can do it after the fact. Sometimes I forget and do it after the fact. But if I can remember to do it ahead of time, do this on the back side. This one's pretty skinny. I tried to make it skinny enough it wouldn't show through on the front there. So I'm going to do one on the top and one on the bottom. And that will just give that a little extra strength since we cut so much of the center of the paper out. Okay, so the other thing that I'm going to do next is I'm going to fold this in and just crease it because this just makes it easier when I go to actually put the card together. And then I'm not struggling with these sides popping out. So here's my front, and it's going to push in like this. Here's the back. Definitely, whatever you're going to do on that background, have it ready to go. So I've got my pieces already put together, and let me just put this on. And again, I kind of lay everything out before I attach anything, so I can move it around and adjust it and kind of know where I'm going. So I put my pumpkin a little off center intentionally because this piece is going to go on top like this. And I wanted more of the pumpkin over here so I could see it better, and then I'll put something else over here. So when I decide, okay, what am I going to do? Everything is attached with an acetate strip here. So I think you can see that acetate strip. I've got one on her head and her body because she's so big, and I've got one on the cat over here. So before I just like blindly lay it down, I try to play with it, and I lay this piece over here so I have it, this is on acetate and I had this as a longer strip. So I can kind of decide where I want to put it up and down and how far in and out to stick this. So when this is flat, this is going to be how my clouds look. But I know when I push it in, when I take it out and make it like a diorama card, I can move my card in, my clouds in and out and see where that's going to fall. And I did the same thing with the cat. I'm going to put the cat on the bottom. I used a fairly big piece of acetate because you don't see it, but this way it supports that cat. And I'm going to put the cat clear at the bottom. So I'm doing this, playing with it, seeing how it's going to move and where it's positioned. And if you want, then you can, just put this together by hand, hold it together, and then you can play with it and see more what your final card is going to look like. So I encourage you to do that before you have everything on there and then decide you don't like it. So I'm going to attach these acetate slips on this outer 1/2 inch. That's all we're going to do. We don't want it on this inner part or else it's not going to stand out here. So I'm just going to put a couple strips of tape here to hold my acetate on. And I have cheated and put a couple little marks there so I could find it without struggling again. So let's just put that on. And you could do as many things or as few things. You don't have to put one on each side. If you just wanted one thing to stick out, that's all you need. So again, I don't want my actual die cut over here because then it's going to be stuck in between these sides that we're going to connect. So let's just put our cat down here. I know I want him, so it looks like he's sitting on the ground here. And I'm just going to use double-sided tape to do this. I do glue these guys on the acetate and then just let it sit, and they stayed on there fine. But to do it to the sides, it's just easier to use double-sided tape. So let me just line that up. And so now before I put it all together, let's just make sure that's how we want it, because we could always peel those off and reposition them and stick them down again. And then I'm going to use double-sided tape, and normally I use, something a little wider, but since this is what I have handy, we're just going to put tape. You could do glue, but I just think tape is, just as easy. On that outer 1/2 inch, the inner 1/2 inch here, you want to keep that open because that's the piece that's going to give us the dimension. And then we're going to attach our front to this. And I'm just going to pull off one here, and then because you all know I'm at adhesive challenge, so I'll try to give myself the best shot of getting it stuck together straight on the first time. And let's see if I get that second liner off in there. Okay. So we've got one side done. Let's do our other side here. And then we've got a quick and easy card base finished. I was amazed at how neat this looked, and really for how simple it was to construct that. All right, there we go. And now you can see the cloud and the cat. I've got that shadow there. There's a cloud and the cat moving back and forth across my card. And I can put strips here. I did that on this one to just add a little bit of color on the outside. And if I want to add something to this outside piece, I can do that. I die cut out Boo. So let's just put Boo over on this side. And Boo can hang out. I don't have to have it over here. I can have it clear to the edge. And just as long as I don't glue it here, I can move that back and forth. And I even die cut out a few stars here from Tim's new die. So again, from this one, Wicked. So let me just put a couple dabs of glue there. And we'll just add a few things to the outside. So you can go all out, keep it simple, or decorate to your heart's content. Just lost that star. Let's see if we can get that stuck back on there. And I can add a few more here. Let's just do one more. Well, we'll do two over here. Since we've got them die cut out, ready to go, why not use them, huh? All right. All right, there we go. Pretty simple, and I'll probably add some paper here just to give it a little more color on the outside. But I think it's cool. I love that card base. It just adds so much, so easy. Here is the pumpkin that I'm using, and there are clouds in the back. And this is called Edison. So either that was from last year or the year before, I can't remember. So just pull out your dies, see what you've got. And then I use the cats, the clouds, the stars, and Boo from this year's Vault series. So check that card base out. And I've got one more if you want to see a different size. This one's even smaller. And this time I only have one thing moving, and that's that scary little spider. So this one is 4 1/4 by 5. That just is what I happen to have sitting there. And I thought I'm just going to do 3/8 of an inch. So that's what I did here compared to a 1/2 inch. So I don't know that I'd go down to a 1/4 inch. That's awful small, but you can do it. It does work just fine to cut or to score in 3/8 of an inch, and then another 3/8 of an inch if you want a little more area in the center if you're starting out with a small card base. So there's those pumpkins again from Wicked. I'll have that one memorized by the time I'm done. And then I believe, let's see, the spider, I want to say, oh, it's from the Gothic portraits. And then the web, and I just used 1/4 of it this time, is from Fright Night. Maybe by the end today, I'll have all these dies memorized. But I love this one. Simple. Okay, let's look at some things with that vault, or with the coffin, excuse me. And this is 3D, so I have yet to come up with something as far as a card, since it is so dimensional. But here's a die that obviously I longed to have for a long time. Let me move these out of the way. And I sat there and just made a bunch of coffin boxes as little candy treat boxes. I also tried to use a variety of paper. They didn't all have to be scary. Some of these are very, very lighthearted, very, very bright. This one is full of candy. I just need the corn candy or some small candy to come out now so I can fill these boxes. And I like to use double-sided paper because then the inside of my box is decorated as well. So you can see I sat and just made one night, well, probably a couple nights, die cut, and just made a ton of coffins. And then I put them on this plate. And now when I have my Halloween party, my Halloween dinner for my great nieces, they can pull these off, and I'll probably have corn candy or some kind of smaller candy in those that we can all sit and enjoy. And one other thing to show you, I wanted to use that coffin box again and make a piece of home decor. So I was originally going to put this in one of those glass domes, but I ran across this clock. This is a clock base from Tim that I had in my stash, and I thought, well, let me try that. So I had my pieces cut out, but it sort of changed how I laid everything in. So you can see the coffin there. And let's see, what else did I use? I think the rest of them were from the previous Vault series. So let me show you what I used. And this one die is from last year. Oh, well, I have this now. This skull head is the one that I couldn't find for the coffin die. So this skull made this guy. Just a minor point. But this die is called Graveyard, and I used the tombstone and the fence here. So the fence is on the outside. You can see the tombstone on the inside. And then because I had the back now, I needed to decorate. I'm like, okay, what should I use for that? So I pulled out the second Vault series this year, and I used this die right here, even though it's not a clock. But you can see how I stuck that in the back, and then I used the numbers from the watch gears. So this one is called the Picture Show, Vault Picture Show. And then I used the numbers right here. And I started with 13 instead of 12. And it didn't really matter because you're not going to see all the way down to the bottom. So I can make my time. If I want a 13th hour, I can certainly do that. And then for my skeleton, I think I pulled out all my skeletons. I'm working on another skeleton project as well. So I found this guy, and he looks like he's this size, but he's actually quite a bit bigger. So what I decided to do is I cut him out of that shrinky dink plastic shrink and got out my little pancake maker and shrunk him down. And so that's the size he came out as. He was even still too tall for the coffin box, but I just kind of altered his anatomy a little bit there and put his extra leg and arm bones right there that I couldn't use in the coffin box. But anyway, that'll be my first piece of home decor using that coffin box that I just love so much. And then I'm all ready to go to start making some Halloween cards with the rest of my dies. So that is using that kind of a diorama card base from Kath Stewart. And then just some basic card fronts. Of course, if you're not into the scary, you can make these a little lighter mood, or you can even do a fall card with the wreath die. So if you are into Halloween, the season is calling us. If you're not into Halloween, maybe focus more on fall for your card makes. And I will see you again in a future video.